So there's got to be still, what has to be protected is the singular experience of experiencing a picture, ideally with an audience. The value of a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel-type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks, that's a different experience. And it's not even, I was saying earlier, it's not cinema, it's something else.
These 3 words, uttered by iconic director Martin Scorsese, set the internet in press aflame last fall. Marvel fans and news outlets alike criticized the so-called attack on what has become the most popular film franchise in recent memory.
Yeah, well, what did he mean by that it's not cinema?
I appreciate his opinion because I think it's like anything. We need all of the different perspectives so we can come to center and move on. Your therapy.
No, come on.
You're therapized.
Others came to Scorsese's defense, equating his so-called dig as nothing more than a tough pill to swallow for those who lack a real taste in films. While I do want to talk about Scorsese's argument and my thoughts on it personally, there's already been a video essay talking about this topic specifically. If you're interested in what he has to say, you can click right here, or use the link in the description down below. It's only 10 minutes and it's pretty well made, so I definitely recommend it. With that being said, I don't want to rehash what he's already said. So instead, I also want to discuss why these Marvel pictures have had a much more lasting impact than franchise films in the past. And not just because of the action or a priority placed on profit. While I agree that these factors are present, I want to voice both perspectives. Scorsese said that Marvel movies are not cinema, which I agree with. But he also said they're a new form. So, what attracts people to this new form of filmmaking, and how can we classify it? Now to start, the most important thing I want to get out of this section is how misconstrued Scorsese's comments were by so many. He was not trying to bash Marvel films at all. He's made that very clear.
Well made, beautifully made, animated pictures, in a sense.
We can break down Scorsese's argument into these 3 major points. Cinema is an art form that Scorsese and others fought for while growing up. Marvel films go against his personal beliefs of what cinema is, and the reason this matters is the limited space of theaters. Scorsese's first point of discussion is what cinema was while he was growing up. He mentions how cinema used to be viewed as lesser compared to literature or music or dance, so filmmakers stood up for the legitimacy of what they were making. The genres of the examples he cites range from crime to war, musical, experimental, psychological thriller, and even the French New Wave of cinema. All these films continually expanded the thought of what movies could explore and what they could offer. He also makes some interesting comments about Hitchcock's films, equating them to his generation's franchise and calling them an event at the theater. Scorsese is certainly aware that Marvel films garner this same kind of attention too. Especially with Infinity War and Endgame, the theaters became spectacles of audiences all sharing their love of this climactic experience. But while this might be the case, the films still do not coincide with Scorsese's definition of cinema, which brings us to his second point. As he puts it, many of the elements that define cinema as I know it are there in Marvel pictures. What's not there is revelation, mystery, or genuine emotional danger. Nothing is at risk. The pictures are made to satisfy a specific set of demands, and they are designed as variations on a finite number of themes. And right here is where, as much as I love Marvel films, I honestly cannot disagree. Now disclaimer, I don't want to discredit the emotion that is present in Marvel movies. Good examples of this are Captain America sacrificing himself on the ice in Captain America: The First Avenger, Thanos losing Gamora in Avengers: Infinity War, and Tony reuniting with his father in the past in Avengers: Endgame. All 3 of these are truly profound moments and certainly elicit a response from the average viewer. The last one especially is a great payoff for a character fans have seen on screen for over a decade now. But I offer to ask you, are these truly the moments you think of when talking about the MCU? At a first glance, no, they're not. YouTube searches for various Marvel movies lead to primarily 2 things: trailers and fight scenes. The action and CGI throughout the franchise is certainly commendable, but while fast-paced action may be entertaining on the surface, it obviously lacks deeper meaning and impact from a cinematic standpoint. There are also certainly different themes and characters present in each of these films, but as Scorsese puts it, one can view them as remakes of the same conventions. Compare this to something like Scorsese's World Cinema Project, an effort to popularize much lesser-known movies by international film directors. On the Criterion Channel, a site dedicated to classic films, Scorsese has introductions for each of the movies as part of the project and discusses the filmmaker's intentions as well as the film's artistic merit.
For us at the World Cinema Project, it was urgent that we participate in the restoration of Broca's work, and we were thrilled when the opportunity arose to begin with Manila in the Claws of Light, made in 1975, adapted from the novel by Edgardo Reyes.
The film is full of the mystery and risk that Scorsese deems so important in cinematic projects. From the challenges of the workers trying their best to live off an unlivable wage, to the eventual reveal of what happened to his girlfriend, the Gaia. So you may ask then, why does it matter that Marvel movies are like this? Why can't we just let Marvel movies be, even though they may be different? Scorsese says that the overcrowding of these franchise films forces other creators' projects who don't fit the bill into the shadows. One needs only to look at The Irishman to see this effect in action. It's important to understand here that Scorsese is not saying these films are bad, but rather he believes that films that do not constrict to the typical Hollywood conventions should be given room to breathe as well.
Which, I say again, are their own new art form. Cinema now is changing. We have so many venues. There are so many ways to make films. So, enjoyable, fine, go and it's an event.
So if Marvel movies do not fit into the typical notions of what Scorsese classifies as cinema, how can we add to his characterization of the films and possibly further define what this new form is, what its conventions are? I first want to reiterate that I agree with Scorsese's theme park assessment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I also think there's another part of Marvel movies that we need to take into account here. Continuity. The end credit scene of Iron Man in 2008, when Nick Fury said,
"Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet,"
set the ball rolling on what culminated in a cohesive 23-film narrative spanning over a decade. Throughout the Infinity Saga, as it's been dubbed now, the MCU continued to build upon its existing canon, further strengthening existing relationships and ultimately leading to a level of connected universe that no franchise had been able to achieve beforehand. In Avengers, we see how characters foil off each other, most notably Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Tony tended to believe freedoms and liberties needed to be sacrificed for the greater good, while Steve valued justice and equality overall. The decisions and conversations characters made literal years ago have had a lasting impact. This is one example among many connections throughout all of the Marvel movies that continually build upon their existing stories. And it's this careful and deliberate construction of the MCU films that lend them to be enjoyed individually, but much more entertaining and rewarding for a viewer to watch holistically. Interestingly enough, this still supports Scorsese's argument that the pictures are made to satisfy a specific set of demands. But I think a great comparison that can be used to expand on a definitive term for Marvel movies is long-form TV. Conceptually, it shares the same qualities: characters and narratives progressing while connected to an overarching narrative that eventually climaxes. Think of Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, any of these shows where you grow incredibly close to the character over the course of many actual years. And it's the fact that the universe is grounded and sticks to the rules it established that makes you feel that the character's actions have real weight and meaning. So I think taking that into account while also remembering Scorsese's opinion, a fair and modified conclusion on what the Marvel movies can really be looked at from a structural standpoint is that they're connective roller coasters. The decisions in Marvel pictures may lack the spontaneity that marks so many great artistic films, but I do think the classification needs to represent the value that this considerate construction has given to viewers unlike other franchises in the past.
Assemble.
Personally, I feel Scorsese's justification for the comments is actually more relevant now than when he originally voiced his concern. With the unprecedented times the world is in, theaters are one among the many things that have been disrupted within our social activities. While streaming already existed as a newfound way for audiences to watch films, now, besides watching physical copies of movies, streaming is the only method rather than an alternative. The absence of theaters has certainly been an interesting time, and the standstill of production leads me to wonder what ripple effects the situation may have on the industry for much longer after. We're already seeing theaters being cut out as a middleman between production and digital release, with Universal's Trolls World Tour seeing massive success using this distribution. Movies will always be a way for viewers to connect with ranging narratives and characters, but it's the theater that turns these experiences into an engaging group event. Time will tell if theaters will need to evolve once again to keep this interaction going, or if they will withstand the harsh reality of today's circumstances.